Truthfully, I also brought my rifle and wore this whole particular ensemble, kind of. It's the same dress, but in preparation for the release of my new book, Hands Off My Gun, which you can get at my preferred retailer, Barnes & Noble. Go to danaradio.com as well. I'm going to be at different places around the country to sign it. I have taken a lot of heat for this book, and not just for the cover, which I am going to talk about here in a second, but also for the subject matter. Hello. People on the left who say that I'm just perpetuating violence, of course, and even some people on the right who are questioning my motives. So let's lay it all out here. Unscripted, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I wrote this book. Now, I want to tell you about the cover for a minute because I actually had to fight for this cover. And when I say unscripted, I mean I'm not going off notes, I'm not going off a monologue, this is me talking to you. I actually had to fight for this cover with my publisher because they wanted me sitting down just with a, I had my Glock 19. They wanted me to just sit down with my Glock 19. I mean, it's a handgun. Handguns are safe, right? Handguns, it's not in the news for anything, although it should be because it's used, moreover, to commit crimes way much more than rifles are, which I get into in this book. But I wanted to use my AR-15 on the cover, and I was hell-bent on using this on the cover of my book, and I fought for it to be on the cover of my book. Why? Because it is the most misunderstood and hated rifle in the United States of America. I am not holding an assault weapon. I am simply holding a semi-automatic rifle. And just because I have a scope on it, and just because of some of the furniture, and it's black, that makes it look scary to people? Because I have deer rifles that don't have all of the bells and whistles that are far more, well, they pack more of a punch than my AR-15 does. That's the whole entire reason that I wanted to use this rifle on this book. And also it's kind of a Rorschach test as well. Your response to it and whether or not you think that it's an assault rifle or an assault weapon is going to kind of determine where you stand on the particular issue of Second Amendment rights and where you stand also on your knowledge of guns. If you're offended by this photo, you and I probably wouldn't get along too much, and I would probably kind of question some of your firearms knowledge because I've had so many progressives tell me, this is an assault rifle, this gun is used in so many mass murders. Actually, check FBI uniform crime reports, and my friend John Lott and I are going to actually discuss this a little bit later in the show because they have a new study out that he takes issue with. So that's the whole reason that I wanted to have this particular rifle on the cover of this book. Notice that it's a red, white, and blue cover. That wasn't me. That was totally the art department because I'm just like, I just want my AR-15 and that's all I want to do. Some people actually took issue with the fact that I'm in a dress and they were trying to be sexist about it. Newsflash, progressive dudes. I'm a chick and chicks wear dresses. Now, I don't like to wear dresses all the time. In fact, I'm much more comfortable in my boots and jeans. But yeah, I'm a chick. I ain't showing any TNA on the cover of this book. It's just me holding my AR-15. If you have a problem with it and you would prefer to see me in a burqa, then we would have problems. I don't get any of that. But I wrote this book because I was aggravated. I was aggravated, I was fed up, and I was tired. This all started, in fact, all of this, and I get into this in my book with my introduction and my opening chapter. All of this, the seeds of the Second Amendment, everything was planted in my head when I was a kid. You guys know that I'm from Missouri. My whole family is from southern Missouri, rural southern Missouri. It's this place where it was a dream to grow up in as a kid. My mom was a single mom for much of my life, most of my childhood. And so on weekends and during the summer, I would go down into the Ozarks and I'd stay with my grandma and grandpa. And we'd say words like yins, which we're having a huge debate about here at the Blaze as to what that means and how you spell it. And we would say, we're going to go walk up the holler and things like that. This was the place where my family lives in southern Missouri. This is the place where they base lemonade commercials on places like this. That's how pristine and how beautiful and idyllic it is. Now, of course, granted, later on in the evenings when people go to the bonfires or they walk out the tavern, it's also probably a good place to get some Cops episodes too. But everybody forgives each other and they shake hands by the time church comes around in the morning. But down in rural Missouri, where the nearest supermarket is maybe 45 minutes away, no joke, you have a mini mart where you can get some beer and milk, but really the nearest supermarket's like 45 minutes away. The nearest movie theater is about 45 minutes away. You're kind of self-reliant. When you call the law, you know the average response time for calling 911 is on average 20 minutes. Well, in rural areas, it's even longer than that, and you have to really be self-reliant. My family's self-reliant. In the town where my family lives, people drive around in pickup trucks with gun racks in the back glass, and that's just, it's just commonplace. That's how I grew up. I grew up educated about firearms. I grew up knowing about firearms and seeing the responsible use of firearms. My grandpa in my family's house, they didn't have gun safes. They didn't lock away their guns. They didn't lock away their firearms. They took pride of place in the home in a hand-carved cabinet with etched glass. In fact, my grandfather's firearms, his rifles and handguns, were stored in a wooden cabinet that my uncle made for him by hand. That's how it was. There wasn't a big old lock on it. We didn't need one because we were raised ultimately, number one, to respect life. Number two, to respect the property of other individuals. And number three, we knew that that wasn't ours. We don't touch, and you can't unpull a trigger. That's how I was raised. And it amazes me that now here I am, an adult, and seeing how many people weren't raised with the same respect for life and the same knowledge about the Second Amendment, the same knowledge about firearms. My grandfather, he used to take all the boys to go hunting with him. They would go raccoon hunting, they would go deer hunting, and I have like 20 some odd cousins. I come from a huge family. So does my husband. It's pretty insane. But us little grandgirls, we were horrible to take out in the evenings to go hunting with him because we wouldn't shut up and we wouldn't stop laughing and we wouldn't stop complaining and everything else. So he just took the guys and we would stay home with my grandma. And he would always come back and I would get to hold the legs of, the raccoons while he skinned them, or the squirrels, or I'd help him field dress a deer or something like that. So I could see, I knew what the result of pulling a trigger was because I saw it. My grandpa didn't hunt for sport. He hunted to eat. We ate deer. I ate raccoon. I ate squirrel. I ate all that stuff. And we could see the value of life. We saw it right there. And I'm telling you, when you grow up actually eating from nature, you really do have a respect for life. And we knew, like I said, we knew never to play with my grandparents' firearms. The one night that I think the first time I really felt fear was I was at my grandparents' house. My mom worked 3 jobs, and during the summers I would go and spend almost the entire summer with my grandparents because she would work 2 factory jobs and then she had another job. My mother was an amazing single mother who could have easily gone on the government dole and didn't. So I went down in the summer with my grandparents and I stayed with them. My aunt was going through a particularly troubling time with her marriage. And my little cousin and I, we were sleeping in my grandparents' bed because that's, they had a tiny little 800 square foot house in the Ozarks. We all slept in Grandma and Grandpa's bed. Poor Grandpa would end up on the floor most of the time. And we would all end up wedged between the wall and the mattress. You know how that is. So one evening, my little cousin and I, their daughter, my aunt and uncle's daughter, we were asleep. And I heard the sound of footsteps on gravel. And I heard a woman sobbing. And my grandparents never locked their door, so I heard this woman come in, and I could tell it was her voice was so high-pitched, and she sounded so hysterical and so upset. I immediately was very curious, but I had also learned early on that if I stayed still and pretended to be quiet, I'd hear a lot more. And she came in and they calmed her down enough so she could explain what was happening. Her estranged husband had attacked her and he had gone to go get a gun. He wanted to kill her. And so she ran through the woods in the Ozarks. It was a cool summer night, but she ran all the way through the woods in the dark in her bedclothes to my grandparents' house. And she ran right into the arms of my grandma and grandpa. And my grandma was getting her calm down, and she said, you need to call the law, is what she told my grandpa. It's what it is. You call the law. It's not you call 911, you call the law. So they called, the sheriff's office. They called for the law. And, in a huge county in southern Missouri, it's going to take a long time for the law to actually arrive. Heaven forbid it's a life or death circumstance. So I laid in bed really still, and I could hear my grandpa. I could hear his heavy footsteps, really slow and really determined, coming down the hallway. And he had our cabinet. He had his gun cabinet in the bedroom. They moved it into the bedroom. And he came into the bedroom. He opened the door, and he grabbed one of his rifles. Actually, he grabbed a shotgun. Closed it. I could hear him, rummaging around for some ammunition, and then he left. He walked. I could hear him walk out. He thought we were sleeping. My little cousin was sleeping, I wasn't. He loaded his shotgun, cocked it, walked out on the front porch because my aunt said, he's coming for me. He's coming for me. He's not going to stop until he gets me. Grandpa cocked the shotgun, sat out on the swing in the front porch. And I was terrified because I'm hearing my aunt cry. And when you're a young kid and you hear adults cry and they're scared, that really rocks your sense of security and it rocks your sense of safety, right? My grandparents' house had been a refuge, and so I was really nervous. I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to come here, he's going to shoot us, and he's going to kill us. And the police aren't going to get here in time. And so when my grandpa did that, fierce determination in every step, he sat on that porch swing, he cocked that shotgun, and he just rocked very gently back and forth. The window was open. A cool breeze was coming in. I could hear the creak of that porch swing and the jangle of the chains as they smacked against each other. And that actually lulled me to sleep. I went from being terrified to feeling safe because my grandfather was able to protect his family. And of course the law came finally, and you know, POs were involved and all of that stuff, but that is how I came to realize how much more firearms could do in my family and how I could rely upon them for safety, not just for providing food. And so because of that personal story, when I see people like Michael Bloomberg and I see people like Shannon Watts and Mom's Demand, when I see them out there arguing about disarming people, moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and men and women, you're not just talking about you know, a political talking point. You're talking about a natural right. Don't confuse it with a civil right. A civil right is something that's determined by government. A natural right is something that is given to you by God. Man cannot take that away or pervert that. And when I see these anti-gun lobbyists out there talking about getting rid of our natural rights, I get nervous because you're talking about getting rid of an ability to defend yourself and your family. And maybe they haven't had to face the criticism and the threats on their life that I have had to face, especially even after I announced that I was writing this book. Maybe they've never had people come to their house. Maybe they've never had people call their place of work and threaten to kill their kids, but I have. And when you talk about taking away my God-given natural right, I tend to get a little testy. And I'm not just going to sit and watch it happen. I'm going to write a book about it. And another thing, when you lie about me and when you go after my rights, I'm not just going to sit on Twitter. I'm not just going to sit on Facebook. I'm going to get a camera crew and I'm going to go to where you're at. And we have video of this. This is actually included in this book. We have video of when I went to Indianapolis and I confronted Shannon Watts of Mom's Demand.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, I'm Dana Loesch. It's nice to meet you. I'm with the Blaze, obviously. We came to check out the rally.
Having a conversation with you. You've been so insulting to me online.
But, well, Shannon, but can I get a comment? Why did you accuse me of being a paid employee for Magpul? Shannon, why did you accuse me of being a paid employee by Magpul?
Point this out. See our security guys?
Shannon, do you have
see his jacket sticking out
at this rally?
They admitted that they were armed. Shannon Watts, Michael Bloomberg's professional lobbyist, had armed men hip check me and shove me around in a public park simply because I was asking for clarification on Michael Bloomberg's #1 professional lobbyist when she was lying about my employment. See, I'm not just going to sit around and talk about it online or talk about it on TV. I'll get a camera crew and all hell will come with me. Now, I could go through this, but obviously I'm very passionate about this subject, and I could sit here and go through it topic by topic. Get this book. This book is more than just a historical look at the Second Amendment. It looks at the racist roots of gun control. Gun control is also sexist because women are the ones who are most greatly disenfranchised when they are disarmed. But I also get into the language of gun control, how we can't even cede the smallest ground on language. You have to be really, I think this is my last chapter. No, Victory's my last chapter, 13. This is the language. You really have to be careful when you talk about, like for instance, don't give any ground and mention assault weapons or say assault rifles. And you can be courteous, but you don't have to necessarily, you can be civil, but you don't necessarily have to be courteous. I have a whole section in here about this, because if I'm being courteous to you when I'm talking to you about you taking away my natural right, it means I'm respecting a position that actually doesn't respect mine. I mean, we get into all of this. So look, go to danaradio.com, get this book. When we come back, I go to the gun range. Stay here.